guys, today is a very exciting day because I finally came up with a full list of tomato varieties that I want to grow. And it wasn't an easy task. I'm a very impulsive buyer, and whenever I look through seed catalogs, I just want to buy all the seeds that I see. But I think it's important to limit yourself at least a little bit because it is so easy to get overwhelmed later on in the season if you grow too much. And overwhelmed gardener means neglected garden. So to celebrate the year of 2022, I decided to grow 22 varieties. I grow in zone 6, high desert climate, hot days, cold nights, a lot of temperature fluctuation. So that the varieties that I choose have to be okay with hot and cold temperatures, as well as intense sun because of the high elevation. So let's get to the tomato varieties. I divided them into 3 groups. Slicers, beefsteaks tomatoes, early maturing tomatoes, and cherry tomatoes. So let's start with slicers. The first one on my list, I've grown this tomato, I think, for 2 seasons already. And it is my absolute favorite. Well, one of my favorites. I have so many favorite varieties that you will be hearing that a lot. But Black Seaman, this is the tomato that I will most likely always grow in my garden. It matures in 75 days. It has this beautiful burgundy color, and the flavor is just outstanding. It's pretty typical for dark tomatoes is that they have this rich, smoky flavor, and this tomato does. But in addition to this deep, smoky flavor, Black Seaman has also the tropical flavor, which is so unique for dark tomatoes. So it's just a wonderful flavor profile. Also, what's fun about this variety is that it has potato leaves. And I just absolutely love tomatoes that have potato leaves. The next one on the list is also a dark tomato. It's Paul Robeson. This tomato is very popular, and for good reason. The flavor is just amazing. I can almost describe it as that umami flavor. It does have this typical dark tomato, smoky, rich flavor, but I feel like it's even more intense. And of course, depending when you grow it, if you get a lot of rain, the flavor will not be as intense as if you collect the fruit when it's like dry. So the days to maturity, it says on the seed packet, is 90 days. I think it's about right, at least in my garden. It matures late, but once it starts producing, it will basically produce till frost. And it's also a very productive plant. The fruit size is about 10 ounces, so it's not this huge beefsteak, but it's a good slicer. And the variety is actually from Russia. The next one, I've never grown this one, but I always wanted to try. It is called Black from Tula. And the reason I always wanted to try, and I finally got the seeds, it's because of its flavor. So the flavor is described as great balance of sweet, acidic, with slight saltiness. Saltiness. We usually add salt when we eat tomatoes to enhance the flavor, but if it has natural saltiness, I think it's just gonna be like something amazing. I don't know. I can't wait to try it. And the color is very dark red, described as brownish. And the days to maturity, it's not bad. It's not bad for a bigger tomato. And it's described that the fruit size is 14 ounces. So it is a decent size. And the days to maturity is 75 to 80 days, which is not bad at all. The next one is Cherokee Purple. I absolutely love this tomato. It is just typical beefsteak tomato, but it's because it is dark tomato, it has this smoky flavor, but it's also extremely sweet, productive, big, juicy. I would even describe it as earthy. I absolutely love it. The variety is from Tennessee. Days to maturity, 80 days, which not so bad. And the color is, like I mentioned before, it's a dark tomato. It's not that purple tomato, it's more like a dark red tomato. And yeah, this is the variety that I probably will always grow in my garden. And the next one is pink Brandywine. I saved seeds from a star that I bought at the local nursery. We moved to this property to our property last season. So last season I did not have time to start tomatoes from seeds. So I had to buy starts. And this is the first time I actually tried Brandywine tomatoes. I know they're very popular, but for some reason I never grew it in my garden. And last year I tried it, bought it from starts, and the garden, and when we moved here, the garden was completely neglected. It was overgrown with weeds, and the soil was poor, and because of the move situation, and you guys know it's so much going on when you move to a new place, especially across the country, that I just didn't have time or energy to really prepare the soil, prepare the garden. But I did not want to miss on a gardening season, so I bought starts and I put them in the ground. And with all that neglect, with not enough water, with poor soil, with weeds, pink Brandywine performed amazing. Yes, maybe it didn't get 6 feet tall, but it produced fruit, and it produced throughout the season, and the fruit was absolutely delicious. So I can't imagine my garden without this plant anymore. It will always be in my garden, I think. And also what's fun about it is it has potato leaves, and I have a thing for potato leaves, for tomatoes with potato leaves. So a little bit about this variety. It's just 85 days to maturity. I think that's pretty much what I experienced. 14-ounce fruit. I think that's about right. They were a little bit smaller in my garden, but for obvious reasons. I mean, the conditions were just tough. And the color is beautiful. It's that beautiful pink color. And the flavor is very sweet, well balanced. The texture is also very nice. It doesn't have too many seeds, but it's also not very meaty. It's something in between. To me, it's just a perfect tomato. So the next one is Old German. I absolutely love this variety. This is orange, kind of bicolor variety. It is described as bicolor, like with red stripes. I did not really experience that in my garden. To me, it was more like a tie-dye effect, but more regular. And the flavor is just outstanding. It's very sweet, well-balanced tomato, and I wouldn't say it's mild, but it's not like very intense. But it's not a very intense tomato flavor. It is on the milder side. It has some citrus undertone, but not very pronounced. It's the main flavor profile for this tomato, for me at least, the way I experienced was sweetness. It is absolutely beautiful, very productive. The fruit can get to 2 pounds, so it can get huge. And yeah, I just love this tomato. Fun fact, it's actually not from Germany, like the name suggests. It is from West Virginia, and it's very, very old variety. It dates back to 1800s. And the next one, very similar to Old German, is Dr. Wyche. There is, again, just like Paul Robeson, it is a very popular tomato. And it's because of its flavor. It is, I like it a lot, and I will always grow it. But I don't know, to me, Old German and Dr. Wyche kind of taste similar. They're both very sweet, they both have very nice texture. They both have similar color, although this one is orange. It doesn't have this bicolor effect. And the fruit is slightly smaller. It's about 1 pound. But I absolutely love this, and I will probably always grow it. And the next one is pineapple. Oh my goodness. This one has such a unique flavor profile. It almost doesn't taste like tomato. It tastes more like fruit. It has a lot of the citrus tropical flavor. And the seed package describes that the fruit can get up to 2 pounds. That wasn't my experience. To me, it was more like a 10 ounce tomato, but maybe because of my climate or soil. But the flavor is just outstanding. I cannot imagine my garden without this tomato. And it also produces relatively early, in about 75 days. So it's definitely worth to grow. And the next one is Azoychka. This variety is new to me. I'm growing it for the first time. I feel like I'm missing a light yellow beefsteak tomato, and this is what it's going to give me. The color of this tomato is yellow, but not orange. It's typical yellow tomato, and it is a beefsteak kind from Russia. It is abounded. It says that the description says that it's an abundant producer. It produces up to 50 tomatoes per plant. I can't imagine that this is actually true. I can't wait to test this variety out. But 40 to 50 tomatoes per plant, that's crazy. That's crazy. But I guess it's possible. We'll see. The flavor of this tomato is described as a sweet citrusy flavor. So this is definitely something that this is definitely a flavor profile that I will enjoy. I love citrusy, fruity tomatoes. So can't wait. And the next one is Thornburn's Terra-Cotta. This is also a new variety. When I saw this tomato, I just had to have it. And for 2 reasons. Days to maturity, 75 days, which is amazing, again, for this size. Because usually the beefsteak tomatoes mature about 80 to 90 days. So if you see anything less than 80, it is amazing. The flavor is described as out of this world. That's all what it says on the seed packet. Out of this world sounds good to me, and I definitely want to try a flavor that is out of this world, but we'll see. But the main reason why I got this tomato is because it looks like such a pretty tomato. So the outside is kind of brown, like terracotta, kind of like brownish, like terracotta pot, like terracotta pot. And what also was interesting, that inside is the flesh is orange pink, and the seed mass is green. So you have so many colors in one fruit. I mean, that mass looks so interesting, and it's just something that I really, really want to try, and I hope it's gonna perform well in my garden. But of course, I will keep you guys posted. And the last but not least in this category, it is mushroom basket. I always try to include something unique, something either shape or color, something that, I guess, a showstopper tomato. And I think this is it. I grew it in the past, and people that visited my garden, I don't think there was a person that visited my garden and did not stop and ask, "Ooh, what is that?" And I just like that. I like to grow something unique, something that not a lot of people will have in their garden. So mushroom basket, this is going to be 3rd season that it's going to be my unique tomato in the garden. I really like this tomato. It is the only tomato in the beefsteak slicer category that is determinate. And what that means that it produces fruit at once. And one thing to keep in mind that usually people feel like determinate tomatoes are compact. And that's often the case for determinate kind. This guy, no. This guy will go crazy. So allow a lot of room. It will spread. It kind of looks like an octopus in the garden. And yeah, this is definitely a fun one to grow. So the next group is a group that is new to me. It is early maturing tomatoes. I don't know why, but I never included early maturing tomatoes in my garden. And the reason I want to include them now is because I cannot wait. I cannot wait 75 days, 90 days for other varieties to mature. And also, I just want to experiment with tomatoes that are good in my climate, and a lot of varieties that are good in my climate, or at least described to be good in my climate, which is that high desert climate, are the early maturing tomatoes. The tomatoes that can withstand cold nights, the tomatoes that can withstand high altitude. So I decided to add some varieties from that group. So the first one is Earliana. Earliana is from New Jersey, and like the name suggests, it matures early. And the days to maturity, 68 days, which is not super early maturing, but it's still pretty early maturing. And the reason why I chose this variety is because it's extremely productive. Once it starts producing, in about 68 days, it will produce till frost. So it will be one of the first tomatoes that will give you fruit, and one of the last tomatoes that will stop giving you fruit. And the flavors is described as sweet and tart. And I like tart tomatoes. I love sweet tomatoes, but I also like tart tomatoes. So I like to have this nice balance. And the color of this tomato is pink. And I'm not growing a lot of pink tomatoes in my garden, so I felt like it's nice to have array of colors, shapes, and different and flavor profiles. So this one will definitely fill that gap. Earliana. The next one is Aurora. This variety is pretty popular. It is from Siberia, and so it must do well in the cold. And days to maturity is 59 days. Color is red, and the fruit size is about 4 to 8 ounces, so it can vary. And actually, Earliana is about 6 ounces. So one thing with those early tomatoes is that the fruit size will not be big. They will not be in the slicer category. This is something between, the size is something between slicers and cherry tomatoes. And it's known to be great for canning. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I'm the most excited about, actually, from this group, about Sasha Altai. And the reason why I'm the most excited about this one from early maturing tomatoes is because of its flavor. It is known to be best tasting tomato in Siberia. And I grow tomatoes for flavor. Even if the plant produces amazing and it's very productive, if the flavor is not good, I will not grow it again. So I'm super excited to try it. And also, it is supposedly very good in high altitude situation, which is where I'm gardening. And the flavor is described as very complex, and it won even some awards for flavor. Days to maturity, 57 days. Amazing. And it is a determinate tomato, so it will produce all at once and then it will stop, which is okay, because then my other varieties will hopefully start producing by the time this guy stops. And fruit size is not too big, 4 to 6 ounces. The next variety is Prescott. Prescott, it's beautiful. It has this oval shape. And the reason why I'm growing is because of the tart flavor. It is supposedly a very good canning tomato. Days to maturity is 69 days. Color is beautiful pink. It is also determinate. The reason why I like to include determinate tomatoes is because sometimes it is nice to free up space in the garden to allow room for fall crops. So I think these guys will produce, will stop, and then some of them, you can remove them and plant fall crops. The next one is Black Prince. I actually heard a lot of good things about this variety, so I'm super excited to grow it. It is, again, this dark color tomato, so the flavor is very rich, and it is a very heavy producer. This guy will produce all the way to frost. It is indeterminate, and the days to maturity is not that early. It's 70 days. But a lot of people said that I talked to that it actually produces usually earlier in the garden. So I really want to try it, see how it does in my garden. And the next one is Gold Dust. I like to, like I mentioned before, I like to include different shapes and colors. So from early maturing, this tomato variety will give me that yellow color. The days to maturity is 62 days, but also what is kind of nice about this tomato that even though it matures in 62 days, it is a decent size. It's 8 ounces. I could technically use it as a slicer, but let's see. And the variety is from New Hampshire. Oh, this one is a total impulse buy. It is not really early maturing. The days to maturity is 74, which is not that bad. But I just had to grow this variety when I saw it because supposedly it is the sweetest tomato you can grow. So Prairie Fire tomato, we'll see. Because I have another variety that I will be talking about next that in my opinion is the sweetest tomato you can grow. So game on. I will compare the two varieties and decide which one is sweeter. So yeah, this is a very fun to grow. The fruit size is kind of about 3 inches, kind of like oval shape, like you guys can see on a picture. So yeah, it is. I'm excited to try it out and see whether it's truly the sweetest tomato you can grow. So now let's move to cherry tomato category. I absolutely love cherry tomatoes. I cannot imagine a summer without cherry tomatoes. They are just so much fun. And the sweetest tomato that I've ever grown is Napa Chardonnay. I love this variety. It is sweet, it is fruity, it has this even champagne undertone. It has the flavor profile that I've never experienced with any other tomato. It's extremely unique. In the summer, I eat it like candy. So I cannot imagine my garden without it. Days to maturity is 70 days. It has very light color, and the skin of this tomato is it's very thin, which is great for me. But I know there are some people that complain about this variety cracking a little bit, which is pretty typical for thin-skinned tomatoes. But because the skin is so thin, it's just such a pleasure to eat. And it's a very heavy producer. It is one of the most productive plants in my garden, and the plant gets huge. So if you want to grow it, allow it room to expand. It will really get big. And it produces, once it starts producing, it produces still frost, at least in my garden. The next one is Sunrise Bumble Bee. From California, I think this tomato is just so beautiful. It looks like an ornamental plant in my garden. The fruit color is this amazing yellow, reddish, kind of a tie-dye effect. And the skin is a little bit thicker than Napa Chardonnay, but it's not too thick. So it's still very pleasant to eat. The fruit is slightly bigger, but the plant is not as productive, which is okay. Days to maturity, very good, 70 days. And the flavor I would describe as, it's still sweet, but it's not as sweet as Napa Chardonnay. I would describe it more as kind of an ordinary tomato flavor, but we're very well balanced. And I mainly grow it is because it just looks beautiful, and I just love to have beautiful cherry tomatoes in my harvesting basket or bowl. I usually put it on the table, and if I don't eat them before I bring the bowl to the house. The next one is, this one is fun. Blueberries. I have a funny story. Like when I first bought this plant, I thought that you're supposed to eat those tomatoes when they're still black. That's why the name is blueberry. They usually start black and then turn kind of bluish. And And then I was just like, there's something off with this fruit because it looks ripened, but it's so hard and tart and ew. And then I realized that no, even though the name says blueberry, you're supposed to eat them when they're red. And if you eat them once they turn red, the flavor is just so intense. It's more like a typical tomato flavor. It's slightly acidic, which I like to add that flavor profile to cherry tomatoes, because most cherry tomatoes that I'm growing are actually very sweet. So it's kind of like nice to add that kind of tart flavor profile. But it's so intense. It's like a flavor bomb in your mouth. Fun fact about this tomato, it was actually bred from seed harvested in the wild from Chile and I think the Galapagos Island. So yeah, it is fun to grow. Definitely, I will always grow it in my garden. And one more thing, it is so beautiful to see the transition from black to blue to red. It just looks like the fruit is going through metamorphosis. And last but not least, black cherry. I love this tomato. The flavor is so rich and smoky and so sweet. And it's not really that typical for cherry tomato to have that smoky flavor. So this one is definitely unique. Days to maturity 75 color, and the color is very dark purple burgundy color. And yeah, I will always grow it in my garden. I think I think like with Napa Chardonnay, with Sunrise Bumble Bee, with blueberry and black cherry, it will really create a nice cherry tomato bowl, and also very nice array of flavor profiles, which I'm always looking for. So this is it. I cannot wait for the gardening season to start. I will be starting my seeds this week, and I will take you guys through the journey of growing all these varieties. I will be posting more videos about how especially the new varieties, how they perform in my garden. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it helpful, and I will see you in the next video.